Hello and welcome to my channel. So this year was definitely a lot of things. There were a lot of twists and turns, especially on a personal level. And some of them were great and some of them were not so good. But as we are in the season of giving thanks, I wanted to take a second and talk about one of the biggest blessings that I had this year, which was the opportunity to do a ton of solo traveling. I had been probably frozen when it came to travel for a really long time. And while I still haven't done some of the bigger trips I want to take, like to Tokyo and to Bali and to, Iceland? Is it Iceland where everybody does that bath in the water and puts the clay on their face and all that stuff? Yeah, I think that's the one. I was really excited this year to get to do a lot of the smaller things that I'd wanted to do, like finally see a musical on Broadway, finally go and see the Golden Gate Bridge after a pneumonia diagnosis a couple years previous had kept me from completing that trip. Finally make it to Miami, a city that I'd heard so much about in my life, but never actually made it to be able to visit. And so in this video, I wanted to take a moment and rank some of my favorite solo traveling experiences and also talk a little bit about what I did in the cities, etc., etc. But before I get started, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, the language learning app, Babbel. As I've mentioned before, I've done a lot of solo travel this year, but most of those places have been kind of domestic, meaning they've been here in America or close enough to America to where I could speak English the whole time and it was fine. However, in the future, I want to go back to Italy, I want to go back to France, I want to go to Tokyo. There's a lot of places I want to go, and that is where using an app like Babbel may come in handy. Babbel is scientifically proven to help you start speaking a new language within 3 weeks. The lessons are designed by real language teachers. It offers live classes and 2 free classes with your subscription. The best thing about Babbel is that it teaches real-world conversation, so it prepares you to be able to have conversations with people who are native speakers of the language that you are trying to learn. One of the things I wanted to do for my next birthday is take a trip to Italy. I mentioned wanting to go to a couple places, but I really want to go to Italy because I've been on a pasta kick for a while. And so one of my bucket list things is to be able to take like a pasta making class in Italy. And the last time I was there, which was so long ago, I didn't really ever learn to speak the language. So I used Babbel to learn a couple of Italian phrases. Mi chiamo Stephanie. Dove il bagno? Posso avere il canto? You don't just have to use Babbel if you're trying to learn a language in order to travel somewhere. You could just use it in order to brush up on maybe a language that you forgot from back in your high school days, or maybe just something new you'd like to teach yourself. If you would like to try Babbel for yourself, please click the link in the description box to get 60% off during Babbel's Black Friday sale. So like I said, there have been many things on my little travel bucket list for a really, really long time. There was a handful of little trips that I took, and I'm going to be ranking the top 5. I'm going to start at number 5 with San Francisco. So I have always wanted to go out to San Francisco. Earlier in the introduction, I talked about the fact that I was supposed to actually go back in 2018. I was living in LA at the time, and I had begun to become close friends with some of the teachers that I worked with. Close friends. We talked, we texted. There was someone in our friend group who had family in San Francisco, and there was somebody else in our friend group whose mother and father, or their family, I don't know who it was, but they actually owned a hotel. And so me and that person, the hoteliers, we had birthdays very close together. And so we were like, you know what, let's go down there. Let's stay in the hotel. Let's have a joint birthday party. It'll be a great weekend. So I was super excited. Here I was on the West Coast, and I was going to go have this cool trip out in San Francisco with my new friends. So excited. However, before we even got a chance to leave for the city, I had gone on another trip in February for a friend's birthday. We had gone to Denver, Colorado. And the goal was to get out in Denver, wear our snow gear, our snow wear, stay at a really nice Airbnb, and possibly do some snow activities. The problem was that zero research had been done. And if you know anything about skiing and snow and any of that stuff, you know that none of it actually happens in Denver. It happens in areas around Denver. And so the trip was kind of doomed from the beginning. Now, I will say we had an amazing time. We laughed so much. We were all really proud of ourselves because it was like 9 girls in a house, and there was no fighting. There was no fighting. It was just laughter. We worked really, really well together. One of my fondest memories from that trip is us all like working together to give the birthday girl a surprise party while she was out. She thought she was out doing something else, but they were just keeping her out on like little dummy runs of the Airbnb. we all like delegated and took responsibility as needed and threw her this wonderful surprise party. We ate really good. I mean, it was a good trip, but there was a lot of walking around kind of aimlessly from place to place because we didn't really know that much about the city. And I did not have the right footwear on, and I guess my body wasn't used to those temperatures. I don't know. But I came back from Denver where it was about between 40 and 30 degrees all weekend. And I came back to LA and it was actually 41 degrees in LA. So don't let people tell you LA doesn't get cold. And I was staying at the time in this like renovated garage thing that didn't have a lot of insulation. And I was home for maybe about 24 hours before like I was getting so cold and I like couldn't get warmed up. And I was coughing, and one of my coworkers who had dealt a lot with like sick family members took one look at me and he goes, "Don't come back tomorrow." Like fiercely, like pointed his finger in my face. "Do not come back tomorrow." So I didn't. I went home and I went to the doctor, and they told me that I had pneumonia. And that was maybe about 2 or 3 days before we were supposed to leave to go to San Francisco. So flights were booked. We all were supposed to get on the plane, and the girls are actually like getting ready to board. I never made it to the airport, and I had to text them from my bed, "Hey y'all, I'm not coming." So I didn't get a chance to go on that trip, and I was really bummed. The next year I did go to Napa Valley for my birthday, and that was fun. But I always wanted to get out to San Francisco, not only because of that, but because I had done the musical Hair. It's the one musical that I've been in, despite growing up my whole life and loving like musicals and Broadway theater and all that. I've been in one. And I was in Hair, and in Hair, there's a song called "If You're Going to San Francisco" or something like that. And, whenever we got into the show, our director like made us, for those of us who weren't alive at the time, she made us all go through and kind of learn a lot about that time and learn about the hippie culture, et cetera, et cetera. And as a result, also really deeply in love with the city of San Francisco. And been wanting to get out there for years, but just didn't know, when I was going to be able to do it. So at number 5, we have Stephanie finally making it to San Francisco. So I didn't spend very long in the city, but while I was there, I did one of those little touristy tours, and we went to a couple of places, most notably the Golden Gate Bridge. Finally made it out there. It was cold. I went in July, and I remember thinking, when is the summer here? Like, what is going on? It was cold and it was foggy. So if you're from San Fran or from the Bay Area, please let me know. Like, do y'all ever get like a beach time? Like where you can go out in shorts and whatever? I don't know. But I went out there. I went to this this Palace of Arts and something. Palace of Arts. I'm sorry. I feel so dumb right now. I can't remember the name, but I'll put it up here on the screen. Went out there, took some pictures. Went to Sausalito, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous little seaside village out there, and had some fish and chips and walked around next to the sea. It was just a very calm afternoon. I went to a restaurant called the Stinking Rose, which is all about garlic, and I love garlic. So I had like hot garlic on these little chips, and then I had it with this garlic pasta. I was in heaven. And I also went to like the Ghirardelli chocolate factory place, which there's just way too many people in there, but I did get a hot chocolate from Ghirardelli. And I didn't spend very much time. I was kind of scared to go because of everything people have been saying about the city. When people talk about a place and they're talking about the crime in a place, a lot of times they are very, very, it scares you, right? If you're not from there. And I'm sure there are some places that fit the description of what you hear on the news. And I don't mean to invalidate a city's very real concerns, but I will just say that while I was there in the place that I was in, I was staying in Fisherman's Wharf. I didn't really see a lot of the things that I've been told about to look out for in that city. It was very beautiful. The architecture was beautiful. I wish I could have stayed longer. I wish I could have had time to like go to Chinatown, and there's so much more stuff I wanted to do, but I just didn't have time. So, and that's probably the summation of all of my little trips. I'm never quite there for very long, but hey, at least I go, right? All right, let's go to number 4 on my list, and that is going to be Miami, Florida. The reason why Miami is number 4 is because, once again, I didn't have time. And not only did I not have time, I didn't do any research. Not a drop of research. But all in all, I will say I did find Miami to be beautiful. I would have definitely loved more time to go into different places. I didn't get to see like downtown Miami at all. I spent most of my time in South Beach. Went out there in the water a little bit, and I really liked like the area that my hotel was in. I stayed at something called the Hotel Greystone, which is a cute little boutique hotel in South Beach, Miami. I was there to see Beyonce. That was my goal. I will say, I think it was too humid. There were certain points where like she was, and if you were at the Miami show, maybe you can vouch for this, but it was very clear that like that wig or whatever she had on was getting hit with that humidity, and she was not comfortable. Sometimes at some points during the show, but she's got strong fans. She got over it. But yeah, Miami was beautiful. I wish I had more time. I did like the things that I saw. I will definitely go back to that city. That's one that I'll absolutely go back to. And yep, it is number 4. All right, number 3 on my list, I'm gonna put Mexico, because I actually went back to Mexico and I wasn't solo. I took my mom for Mother's Day, but I did a lot of the excursions and stuff solo. So my mom's a little bit older. The water was like super cold. And I stayed at the TRS Resorts Hotel, which was really cool because I had just watched like Love is Blind for the first time. Super excited about that. I also finally made it out to Tulum. And everybody has been talking about Tulum, I want to say for the past 5 or 6 years. That's how long I've been hearing about it. I saw people posting about it all on social media. And, again, there was a time in my life where when it came to travel, I'm just frozen. I can't go nowhere. I know I can't really afford to do what I want to do. So I just kind of have to look and like just smile, when I see people posting. And I want to say this at this time, I'm often kind of hard on my content creation career because, but one of the beautiful things has been time and flexibility, the ability to, take time out, go do something and have an experience without having to check in with a boss or do this or do that. And also finances, having the money to finally be able to step out and to do these things. And it was really nice to be able to do that for my mom, who has paid for so many trips and things for me. So I will say, once again, I wish I had more time to explore like the Tulum area to see why that was so Insta famous. There are so many things that happen there. I think one of my big things about Mexico, specifically Cancun and the Riviera Maya is where I was this time. But that whole area down there that's very touristy, one of the big things is I'm just like, how has it been here the whole time? And like, I've literally been twice in my life. Like, what's going on? I love the fact that it's just right across the border. And, that's another place that people were warning us about, like travelers about earlier in the year, as far as like crime and things like that. I had a good time. I don't know that I would recommend that hotel. I don't think I've found like my hotel spot yet. The only reason why I say I don't know if I would recommend it is just because the rooms are so weird. The rooms that I got, like your tub is in the middle of the room. I don't like that. Or like the shower, you have to walk across. Like it's weird. It's weird the way it's set up. I like when, the bathroom is here, the thing is here, that, whatever. I like that. Let's go to my number 2, which is actually in Texas. And it's a little town called Comfort, Texas. So if you know anything about me, you can look me up. My last name is Comfort. And I found out about this little town that's been around since the 1800s in Texas, in like the hill country, about 10 years ago. And I actually wanted to have like my 30th birthday or 31st, something like that there. I sent it around to a couple people back then, and they were like, sure, we'll check it out. That feels like a lifetime ago, and we never did. And I always was kind of curious about it. And so at the end of September, I decided to take myself and my dog out to Comfort, Texas. I was looking for new things to do for my patrons. I had been telling stories and I felt like things were getting kind of stale. People were asking for vlogs and stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I've wanted to experience this, and Texas has so many great places for you to go. And like, there's so many wineries, and there's really beautiful parts of Texas that if you're from a place like that's kind of more flat, like Houston, you don't always see. You don't always see the mountains and the hills and the water and all that stuff that Texas has to offer. So that's like in the hill country portion of Texas, and that's where Comfort is. And so I went out there. It's a little bit outside of San Antonio, and it's not a actual city. It's an incorporated something. I'll put it up here on the screen. So they don't have like their own police department. They don't have their own governing body. And when I got to where I stayed, which was a place called Camp Comfort, I was really freaked out because the staff is not on staff. Like I drove in, I parked, and I immediately called someone like, help, please help me, because I want to know who I talk to if I have a problem. And the lady on the other end was like, why would you have a problem? And I'm used to wanting to know where security is, wanting to know where, whatever. But it just felt like they weren't really worried about a lot of stuff out there. So I kind of decided to chill. And I went and I settled in, and the cabin that I stayed in was beautiful. What Camp Comfort is it's basically like a event space and, campground. People get married there. They hold retreats there. And I actually grew up going to camps in the summer, going to like Christian camps and going to like activity camps and going out in nature. And it just reminded me of that. I was really emotional whenever I was in the space again, because especially like they have a hall, like a dining hall area. And I just remember being a little kid, like 11 years old, going into a dining hall for the first time, singing songs and doing chants with my bunkmates. And it was some of the richest times of my life. And I forgot about it. That was a million lifetimes ago, but I walked in and it was like, I remembered. The memories were so vivid. The nostalgia was so vivid. My dog also came with me. I think I mentioned that. And he did so well. He wasn't happy at first because he was confused, but it took him a little while to get used to it. And then we got hit with a storm. And so he climbed up in the bed with me and slept with me. Overall, I really liked being out there as far as like having like that retreat space. And it's also near some really great wineries. And so I went and I visited a couple of those. Yeah, it was just a nice, relaxing weekend. It was hot. And so according to the people that work there and live around there, most people come to Comfort in the colder months because it is so hot. So if I had waited and gone like October, November, December, it probably would have been a little bit more populated. It was kind of a ghost town, but it was cool. I enjoyed it. Before I get to my number one solo travel spot, I want to say this. I'm the type of person who grew up in a family who took trips together. I'm the type of person who thought, by the time I'm age, I'll have a family, I'll take trips together. I'm the type of person who, if I didn't have a close friend to do something with, I would never do it. I'm the type of person who for a long time was afraid of the world, was afraid of showing up somewhere and saying, I'm by myself, was afraid of walking and navigating streets without having the friend who's good at directions next to me, was afraid and embarrassed to visit places and still not have like a man or a partner beside me. And so for a long time, I wouldn't leave. Even if I had the money, I wouldn't make the trip unless everything was perfect. And what I want to tell you is that please don't be afraid of the world. If you can afford it, and if you have the health, and if you have the time, please get out there and see things. There are those of us who really, really thrive in environments that are different than the ones that we were maybe born into or we see every day. Travel has a way of also bringing you into contact and into community with people that you would have never met otherwise. And I am never more, I think, magnetic than I am when I am in a new place. And it just comes from being nice. And I think a lot of that niceness and that warmth comes from me being in a space where I can explore. So if you happen to find yourself at a place in life where you don't have people you can call up and be like, hey, I want to put together a girls trip. If you don't have nobody to go on a vacation with, but you really want to check out an all-inclusive resort. If you don't have a family to go with, but you want to go to Disney World, you want to go to Disneyland, go see it. Go do it, especially while you have the ability to do it. That's the biggest blessing, because actually, me and my mom took a couple trips together this year. And on that tip, I do want to mention that another trip I took out to the West Coast was to be in the audience of the Jennifer Hudson show. I did that in October, and that was a whole adventure. My episode aired October 24th, and the next episode that I'm in airs January 5th. So if you watch Jennifer Hudson, you might see me in the audience. For the January 5th show, they moved me down and in the aisle, so I might be on TV, y'all. We'll see. But while we were getting these opportunities to travel together, we may have done like three or so trips together this year. I was like, I'm so grateful for this because I know it might not last forever. And this is a time that I've waited for a while, like, again, to be able to say, hey, I'm going. Hey, I'm taking the trip. Hey, it's happening. I've waited for that for a while. And so I'm so excited that it's here. And I know next year might not be like this, finances, the health, anytime that door opens and you can do it, please do it. Okay, without further ado, my number one, my top spot that I traveled to this year was absolutely New York. New York, I went back to Manhattan. I went last year, but I went for a friend's birthday. And so we were really focused on what they wanted to do. They didn't really want to even really spend a lot of time in New York. What they wanted to do was go leafing, which is when you go up to New England and you look at the leaves and the foliage. And there are people who actually mark the foliage on, like, there's apps, there's maps. Like, people take leafing very seriously. So that's what we focused on last year. But this year I was like, I want to go back and I want to do what I want to do, which is see Broadway. I grew up on musicals like Rent and Wicked and In the Heights and Aida and God, what else? Just basically all the pop musicals, like all the ones that fought their way from the Broadway stage to suburbia. I grew up with Dreamgirls was huge. What was the other one? The Lion King, because I actually saw The Lion King in London on the West End. But so that soundtrack. And then, of course, Hamilton. When Hamilton came out, I was one of those people that listened to it all the time, knew all the words. So when I went last year and I couldn't go because that wasn't the focus of the trip, I was a little sad because I had wanted to go to New York and get back, because I went when I was 13 and I was trying to get back for years, but I couldn't afford it. Couldn't find anybody to go with. And then I was so afraid to go by myself. Like, I was so afraid of New York. I was so afraid for a long time. So when I went with my friend last year and we were there, both me and her were kind of looking at each other like, damn, we made it, because we had both been trying for a long time to get to the city and to experience it. I was like, you know what? I want to go back. I want to go back, but this time I want to go to Broadway because it is important to me. Like, I thought for a long time I wanted to be a musical actor. I do not. They work very hard. They have to sing those same songs. And it is just, I couldn't do it. So I always thought I missed my calling. I did not. But I knew I wanted to go back. I knew I wanted to have that experience. So I did. I got to see Hamilton, which I was so excited. Like, I know the songs, I know the show. I've watched it several times on Disney Plus. But being in that theater and getting to see them sing it live, it was an incredible experience. And then I got to see Wicked, which I've already actually seen it, but it was so long ago, I didn't remember it. I saw like a touring production of it, but to see it on Broadway was amazing. I went to the Broadway Museum, which I was like in tears the whole time. That was a beautiful experience, or the Museum of Broadway. And yeah, I got to go this trip and just focus solely on like all that little stuff that I wanted to do. I would have seen more shows, would have definitely been there longer. If I'd had more time. And now that I have a dog, I have to board him every time I travel, which adds on extra. So yeah, I had to get home. But I do want to share this little anecdote from when I went to New York. I was coming back into my hotel after being out all day, seeing shows and hanging out, and solo, by the way, completely solo and fine. I want to say that for those of you who are like afraid to sit in a restaurant by yourself, don't be afraid to talk to people. Do not be afraid to do not. When you go out in the world, you immediately become a part of the world, right? So you're no longer alone. Just remember that. So I came back to the hotel and I talked to the guy who was at the counter. He was like a bartender. He was doing something. And he said, well, how are you tonight? How's your trip? How are you feeling? And I looked at him and I just took a deep breath and I said, I am wholly content. No notes. 10-10. And he was like, damn, what did you do? So I kind of told him about my day and he was like, oh, okay. Great. I am happy to hear it. And I meant that, like from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head. I was so content. And that is going to wrap up my list of solo travel experiences for this year. As I said again, it was one for the books when it came to solo travel. I'm grateful for each of these destinations. I don't know what next year will look like. And so I wanted to take advantage. And I promise I left once a month, every month this year, left and went somewhere new. And I think I am better for it. Did you go anywhere fun this year by yourself? If you did, please feel free to share it. And as always, thank you for watching.